Tonight, neighbors want answers to a case of animal cruelty that has outraged a neighborhood. Pete, the peacock, was a pet in the Castlegate neighborhood in the city of Las Vegas. Someone shot him twice with a bow and arrow.
Just a really beautiful, innocent animal. Everybody loved Pete.
Our grandkids loved that bird.
Pete, the peacock, was beloved by many. He was a neighbor's pet, but called this corner of the Castlegate community off Cimarron and Charleston his home. Folks loved to stop and snap photos of him in all his glory. He'd peck on windows to ask for treats and would get berries, so kids called him the peeping peacock. Now these same neighbors are asking who could be so cruel to shoot Pete with a bow and arrow.
If I found him up against their fence and he had an arrow sticking out of him and he let out a honk and then he just kind of laid there almost like he knew I was trying to help him.
Neighbor Felicity Carter scooped him up and rushed him to the local vet.
The vet called and said that he had actually been shot twice. Once in the neck that had went completely through and through, the body cavity shot that was actually stuck in him still.
Both arrows were hunter's arrows. She says staff tried their very best to save him after he lost a lot of blood. He didn't make it.
You're a coward. This was just such a senseless crime, and I don't understand how anybody can shoot a defenseless animal.
It was devastating. We've been in tears around this neighborhood for days.
The HOA sent out a memo asking for help for fellow neighbors to check their surveillance and report to Las Vegas Animal Control. But what scares these neighbors is the person who did it most likely lives here.
It's scary. We're wondering, is somebody in this neighborhood that vicious?
I will not stop until I find out who did this to him. We have to do something for Pete. We have to get justice.
So right now, Las Vegas Animal Control is the only agency with an open case. They are asking anyone with information to come forward. The crime would be a misdemeanor in animal cruelty with a penalty up to 6 months in jail and a fine up to $1,000.